In explaining why I wrote Here I Am Again, I want to talk about a story in John chapter 9. It's a really inspiring story. It's about how one day Jesus was walking along with his disciples and they saw a blind man, and he had been born blind. And so Jesus knew that he was going to heal this blind man and that the glory was going to go to God. And so he went up to the blind man, spit on the ground, put mud on his eyes, and then he told the blind man, go and wash yourself in a certain pool, and you're going to be healed. So the blind man went, he washed his eyes out, and he was healed. And people were amazed because this was a true miracle. I mean, people knew this man, that he was born blind, so they were amazed. So they said, well, who healed you? And he said, well, the man they called Jesus did this to me. And it caused a stir because there was so much controversy about who Jesus was at the time. You know, was he really the Son of God? You know, was he really who he said he was? And so people were just confused and asking questions and wondering what was going on and analyzing things. And some people brought him to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were like the religious leaders of the time. And they had a hard time believing that Jesus was actually who he said he was. So they were trying to find reasons why it couldn't possibly have been Jesus that healed him. And so at one point they go to the blind man and they say, well, we don't think that it could be Jesus because Jesus is a sinner and so he can't do miraculous signs. And I love the reaction and what the blind man said. And I'm going to read it to you from John 9, verse 25. This is what the blind man said. He says, I don't know whether he is a sinner, the man replied, but I know this. I was blind and now I can see. I love that because while everyone was trying to complicate everything, while everyone was trying to analyze everything, what it came down to for the blind man was very simple. He just said, look, I don't know about all those things. I don't know exactly, the doctrine of who he is. But what I know is I was blind and now I see. And that was, in a sense, enough for this blind man because he had experienced the transforming and healing power of Jesus Christ. And whatever anyone told him, whatever arguments there were about Jesus, what was enough for the blind man was that he was blind, but now he could see. And that's what I want to bring out in talking about Here I Am Again. I find that over the last 12 years, as Jesus has healed me and as I have walked with Jesus, sometimes I've found myself complicating things. I've found myself analyzing things way too much, trying to figure things out way too much. Even among believers sometimes, we seem to complicate things sometimes. It's important to talk about things, it's important to discuss what we think about different scriptures, but sometimes I found that the Lord would really want me to just come back to the basics, to the simplicity that I was once blind and now I see. So when I would try to complicate it, it's like God would just bring me back and say, Dan, remember where you come from. Remember what I did for you. Remember who I am. And so I stop at different moments in my life and I'd say, oh yeah, I was depressed, but you gave me joy. I was suicidal, but you brought me back to life again and gave me a purpose. I was broken and you healed me. You repaired the brokenness in my heart. And in the midst of all that complication, when I just remember that, it's enough for me. And so I can fix my eyes back on him. And the other thing I would do is that I would complicate things by trying to do things to earn his love. Thinking that if I just did better, if I just did this and this, if I read my Bible more, if I did this, I could feel more peace, or I could get more of his love, or I could earn more of his grace. But that's not it at all. What God wanted me to remember in those times was that it is all about what Jesus has done for me. And by trying to earn anything from God, I was complicating things. So when I wrote Here I Am Again, it was in one of those times where I was just forgetting about the simplicity and the beauty of knowing Him as my Father, of knowing Him as my Savior, of knowing Him as my guide, my comforter, the one who refines me and loves me and gives me grace all the time. I had to come back to those very simple truths, just like the blind man did. You know, he, instead of analyzing the whole situation, he just stopped and he just said, look, all I know is that I was blind and now I can see. And I hope that this song helps you in some way to maybe come to that point as well. That if there's just a lot of confusion in your mind, or you're just caught up in some kind of doctrine, or you just can't figure something out, just maybe stop and just remember what Jesus has done for you. Just remember who He is. Remember how great He is. Remember how loving He is. Remember how He has saved you. And just go to God very plainly, just as you are, like a child going to their father. Just go to Him and remember those things. And after I did that, I had a lot more peace of mind and peace of heart, as I just came back to the simplicity of it. And I know I'll complicate things again, but that's why this song is called Here I Am Again, because God doesn't get tired of us coming to Him. No matter how much our hearts are divided, no matter how much we mess up, we can come to Him over and over and over and over again. And He wants us to come just as we are. And He'll help us to simplify things so that we can just love Him and receive His amazing, incredible love and grace.